What are you doing right now? Are you dreaming? It's even better. You're now entering Dreamland. Hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Axler, and I am the host of Now Entering Dreamland, a podcast about dreams, sleep, and everything in between. Welcome back to those of you who have been to Dreamland before. We're happy to have you back, and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. It's a Sunday, and that means I get to release a new episode of Now Entering Dreamland. And as every Sunday, I'm always excited when I get to release an interview style episode of this podcast, and that is happening today. For this episode, I got to interview one of my friends, Noah Goldstein, who is a hysterical stand up comedian. Not only does Noah perform stand up, but he also produces his own shows, and he's very, very funny. When I started this podcast, Noah mentioned to me that he had trouble sleeping, and he had experienced problems falling asleep for most of his life. And I found that very interesting because I have too. So I said, Noah, I need to talk to you for this podcast. We had a really great discussion, and I'm excited to release it today. So without further ado, an interview with Noah Goldstein from Now Entering Dreamland. So, Noah, I've known you for like a little over a year now.
Yeah.
And we've never talked about our sleep or our dreams, but I'm curious. You've told me that you stay up. You struggle falling asleep, and I'm wondering. Tell me a little bit about that.
I can't go to sleep. I'm okay when I go to sleep. For the most part, I can sleep through it. It depends, but I get racing thoughts. And just it's very, very hard. Sometimes I dream, not incredibly interesting dreams. Sometimes they are, but I wanted to talk to you because I love this project, and also there's such a nexus between the things that keep us up at night and the things that go into stand-up comedy.
Yes.
And I watch your comedy, and I love your comedy, and you seem to be able to get 5 minutes out of one subject more so than a lot of people. And I think that's kind of, you're not like when you're having racing thoughts, it's not one to the other. Rapid fire one-liners. It's like, this is one thing that could go wrong. This is one thing that could go wrong. This is one thing that could go right, but it's still going to keep me awake.
Yes.
It's very frustrating.
Oh my gosh. I relate to that so much. And I think, like, for me, a really big issue that I sometimes have with falling asleep is I'm convinced that I did not lock the door to my apartment. And so I'm just like, and I try to convince myself, I'm like, I am not getting out of bed and checking the door. I know it's locked. But then for like the next half hour, I'm like, it's not locked. I bet it's not locked. Anyone could walk in and you will be attacked. I was like, so I have to go out and check the door. And of course, then it's locked. And I'm like, well, I'm going to bed now. But then when I go to bed, I'm just like, what if by checking the door to make sure it was locked, I somehow so I relate to your racing thoughts, but what are your racing thoughts specifically about? Or are they about like everything?
They're about everything. Though with one of my biggest fears is in terms of nightmares is getting burglarized. So I definitely understand the door, but I do the same thing with my alarm clock. I've never forgotten to set it. A couple of times I've done that. I've switched up PM and AM, but
same.
It's like one of these completely unfounded fears. And I don't want to look at my clock because if I know what time it is, I'll get very frustrated because it takes so long to go to sleep that if I see it's 10:30, I'll get so irritated with myself that I'll add another hour because I'm going, why can't I sleep? I'm tired. I never sleep. What's going on here?
That's so true.
Yeah.
I'll do that as well. Like last night is a perfect example where my bedside table is on the right side of my bed. So I was facing the left and I was like, I'm not going to look over there at the clock. And then when I turned around, it was 3:30 in the morning. And I just felt at that point I said, what's even the point of any of this? Like, should I just get up now?
But then the question is, if you hadn't have looked at your alarm clock, I mean, would it have been 11 o'clock? I mean, it doesn't change the fact that you're not sleeping.
That's a very good point. Though I would rather live in the unknown sometimes.
Yeah, it's like Plato in the cave, but I don't want to leave the cave to look at the alarm clock. I just want to sleep. I don't need to know what the unknown is. It's okay.
Did you used to, have you always experienced this, or did you used to fall asleep well, or have you always been someone who struggled with sleeping?
Oh, I can never fall asleep. It's been going on for a while. I shared a room with my sister growing up, and we had a bunk bed, and she would read in bed, and her light would always disturb me, and I'd spend so much time getting worked up about the light that I wasn't sleeping. And there's so many things that go into that, and then there's just so much pre-thought that goes into, well, if it's going to take me on average this long to go to bed, I have to be in bed by this time, and my phone's got to be in the other room, and I probably should be reading. In this and that, and I've always, it's just the going to sleep is just so hard. It's incredibly irritating, and I'm sure it's irritating for other people to hear about it as well. That's not a very interesting subject. I think at the end of the day, no one can sleep. You like it? Okay, I'm glad. Yeah. I have 3 roommates, and I give them like a rundown every morning of how I slept. And it's never a good rundown. It's like the daily briefing for the president. It's like Spain has a new prime minister, and like, hey, I couldn't sleep again.
Oh my gosh, Noah. I feel like I have one roommate, and sometimes around when I can't sleep, and there's a difference so sometimes I can't sleep and I'm tired. And that's frustrating because I really want to go to sleep, but I just can't do it. But there are other times I can't sleep and I'm not that tired. And when that happens to me, I'll go out into my living room and I'll play video games. And sometimes my roommate will come out at like 2 or 3 a.m. and she'll say, are you what's going on here? But like, for me at least, I would rather be doing something than just lying in bed upset. But how do you feel about this?
How do I feel about
when you can't sleep, do you at some point kind of give up and say, you know what, I can use this time to do XYZ? Or
no, I never give up. I don't know, at a certain point I'll like draw a line. Sometimes I have a thing in I'll say, like, if I look at my clock and it's later than 10:45 or it's earlier than 10:45, I started listening to guided sleep meditations. No, they're terrible because they have YouTube ads. I listen to them on YouTube.
Oh.
So it's a 12-minute sleep meditation. So the first part is, like, hey, you're ready to go to sleep. Everything's very calm in your life. I'll tell you that this is really, really, but like you're on a beach, and I'll go, fine, I'm on a beach. Like you're really calm, like, fine, I'm really calm. And I'll listen to the sounds of the ocean, and then they're like, hey, like a new movie's coming out. It's a Tarantino film. I'm like, why?
Oh my God.
I listened to one the other. Normally they're just they want you not to think, which is important for me because if I don't think, I could go to sleep. But there was another one where you were supposed to start sitting up in your bed, so I listened to that part. And then they said, think about your day. And I said, I don't want to think about my day. That's why I came to you. If I don't have you here, I'm thinking about my day. So do you ever listen to sleep meditations?
I tried once to, it was called a sleep cast, and it was called Rainy Day Antiques or something. Have you heard of Rainy Day Antiques?
No. I've heard of the Antique Roadshow.
Noah, I want you after this to Google Rainy Day Antiques.
Okay, I'll write it down.
But it's like an hour-long sleep cast where this calming British man talks to you and tries to get you to go to sleep. But at some point, like 10 minutes in, I thought the British man was a little too sinister. Like, even though he was calm, there was something about it that just felt, and nothing bad happened in the sleep cast, but I just got so paranoid about it, I couldn't listen to it any longer.
Do you find yourself, or did you find yourself kind of finding nitpicky things about the Yeah, me too. I get so irate, like if they want me to visualize something, it's fine. Like, I know I'm not on a beach. I'm not going to go out of my way to think that I'm not on a beach. Like, I'm not living in an alternate universe, but they'll tell me I'm really calm, or, I'm important, or, like, don't worry, you're special. Like, hey, you don't even know me. If you knew me, you wouldn't be saying that.
Oh, no, that's not true.
But I just find myself like getting worked up about the things they're saying. I tried to write a bit about the sleep meditation and how it got me. It's something I try to address in stand up, but also I don't know, it's difficult.
So I have a specific comedy question for you, which is, I feel like when I was doing comedy stuff, it was easier for me to fall asleep because I would feel very tired after shows. And I feel like because a lot of the live shows and open mics and just, the normal things that we were doing so often has largely, not completely, but largely been totally upended. I'm really, really struggling with, I just don't feel like I've done enough during the day to warrant myself being tired.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just there's something about sitting around the house all day. It's so exhausting, but I get so stir crazy.
Same.
In my room, just like practicing different voices. But I'm not getting anything done. It's there's so much time to be unproductive.
Yes,
I,
that's so true.
I had to, instead of writing jokes down, I had to start just writing down jokes I want to write down because I'm just doing such a poor job of doing it. I just started writing down, like, I'm going to do this eventually. Like, tonight's the night. I have the couple words about each joke. I think that's kind of the nature of the pandemic. But I see what you're saying about stand-up. When I started doing stand-up, every time I would come home, I couldn't go to sleep because it was such a rush. But then when I started doing stand-up all the time, and it was night after night, and you're not eating super well, and you're probably you're drinking beer, and it's the rush is still there, but it's dwindling, I guess. And I'm staying up past my bedtime, and I kind of have, depending on where the show is, like maybe a metro ride to ruminate on my set. I do think I found it easier to go to sleep. But at the beginning, I don't know, when you started stand up, I could not go to sleep. I was like, wow, that was, what a rush.
I do agree with that. I feel like I still feel the rush, and then, but also for me, it's like, and you produce shows as well. So I feel like that time after producing a show, when it's like, I'm taking down all the equipment and like organizing things, that's kind of when I'm processing it. And I think a lot about doing those shows at Silver Branch Brewing, and it's like I would clean up the space and everyone would leave, and then I would get like a beer or two, and by that point it'd already be midnight, and I'd say, well, time to go home now. So it's just like I feel like I had that time built into it, where I felt the rush, and then I would slowly kind of gradually get more to regular stasis, and then I would just get tired and go to sleep.
Yeah, I guess at a certain point your body just shuts down, but it's hard for me to accept that. Like, when you're if you're tired enough, you'll just go to sleep. I'm like, I'll tell you, I'm always tired enough.
One thing I want to know is, I struggle with falling asleep, but I do find that when I'm sick, I can go to sleep like instantaneously. It's the one time where I feel like what I mean, and I guess that's being sick for you, but it's like when I have the flu, I always hated taking naps. I hate it, but it's like my body forces myself. It's like, nope, you're out. And then I'll wake up 2 hours later and I'm like, interesting. Do you experience that?
When I'm sick, yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to go to sleep. I have a love-hate relationship with naps. So I used to hate them, but I really need them. But I have to be really tired to take them. But I'm in this terrible cycle. And I like so much of my life revolves around having a bedtime, which is, it's kind of like, you hear like, oh, Benjamin Franklin only got 3 hours of sleep a night. It's like, well, he's probably miserable. I was sleep deprived. Like, why is this a good thing? But yeah, I need to, I need to nap, but then I can't nap. And then it's different between you're tired at night and then you can go to sleep and it's irritating. There's nothing worse than firing a blank on a nap. I don't know if you feel that way. Because then it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and then you're groggy. Yes. But you have to do things.
I agree with that. I used to hate naps. And I'm talking about when I was a toddler. It would be time for me to take this nap, and it was really like they tried to do a salesman type thing where it's like, this is going to be great, you're gonna love this, and I was like, no, do not make me take a nap was my big campaign. And then
walk-in naps.
I eventually when I was in college was a big nap fan. just because, I was staying up pretty late doing schoolwork and, extracurriculars and trying to have a social life for the first time in my entire life. And then so these little 2-hour periodic naps during the day became very important for me. But I totally agree that when you wake up from a nap and it's around 5 p.m. and you just feel like worse than before.
Yeah.
The
I
nap.
had a semester in college where I couldn't plan any late classes, so all of my classes were at 8:30. So I'd stay up late, I'd do the class, and then I'd come home. My classes would end by 10, and then I would nap every day at 10. It was like clockwork. But it was a terrible nap because it was probably when I should have been sleeping to begin with. So my body was like, wait a second, we just woke up and now you're going to sleep. Like, what? what's going on here?
Yeah, I had one semester like that where on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had an early class, like math, and I'm not good at math. So already I was setting myself up almost to fail, but I had the most wonderful math teacher. Anyway, so I had math at 8:30, and then I had 2 more classes, like back to back to back, and then I would eat food. And then, because it would be around noon, 1 p.m. by the time all of these classes ended. And then I would have a huge hours long break until whatever was happening in the evening. So I would just go back to my room, would just be out, like would not even set an alarm, which is odd for me. I would just like lay down.
Did you lock the door?
And let my body just wake up whenever. And it would usually wake up around 6-ish p.m. And I'd be like, oh, great, dinner. But like, it would always feel so just like, my body was like, what are you doing to us? Like, what's going on here?
I know it's crazy because there's the weird the gap between your body and your mind. Your body's just like a foot soldier,
Yeah.
Like it's just along for the ride. Like it's just following orders, and your mind's like giving it these like bizarre orders,
So true. Like, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite foods in this entire world is like, I love egg rolls to the point of just like, oh my God, I love them. But every time, like the morning after I feel like I eat an egg roll, I have like an egg roll hangover where my body's like,
oh, no.
Why have you done this again? But I love them so much. I can't stop eating them. I do put my body through a lot, I guess.
Yeah, we all do. It's crazy, but it's still. I just think of the pace at which I live my life, and the inability I have to sleep, and then I can get up the next day and be groggy, but then just get going, and the cylinders start firing. I'm like, at what point does my heart just stop working? I mean, it's got to like go on strike at some point. Like we're sitting this one out, Don't cross the picket line. we need to rest here.
So my lack of sleep, or my ability to fall asleep around June, reached the highest point it's ever been, where I was staying up for days at a time. And I think it's because I was so anxious about COVID, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I was operating under the impression that around the summertime we would have a brief respite of COVID, because I was hearing, and maybe this was internet theory at this point, but I was hearing people saying, oh, the rays of the sun will help to kill it, and you'll be able to go outside and socialize again. And I was so looking forward to it. And then when that turned out to be just total malarkey, I think I was just so anxious about it. I was literally staying up for like 48, 72 hours at a time. And I reached the point where I picked up some Tylenol PM. And I wanted to ask, have you tried Tylenol PM?
No, sleepy time. I do
sleepy time.
Sleepy time, that's as hardcore as I'll go.
The Tylenol PM, honestly, it worked. It works for me. So sometimes now when I'm having an especially tough night, I'll just like cut one in half and I'll take it, and it just like, it does exactly what it needs.
How do you feel the next day when you take it? Do you feel groggy or?
Oddly enough, so I used to take, what is that natural supplement that you can take? That
melatonin?
I used to take melatonin, and that would make me feel like I was on the moon. Like I was just like not with it when I woke up. I was so
terrible, right?
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was so terrible. And I would take it because I wanted to be better rested for work. And then I would show up to work just totally zoned out, because I mean, it made me feel literally like it was even worse than being hungover in my opinion. And so the Tylenol PM, it actually makes me feel normal. Like, and granted, I am only taking the half of the pill, so I don't know what will happen when I take the full pill.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to find out.
Hopefully we don't. But it feels pretty good. So.
Yeah, melatonin is awful. I didn't realize how awful it was. I traveled somewhere internationally maybe a year or two ago, and then I came back on a Sunday and I had to get back to adjust to the time zone. So I took melatonin every night to kind of get myself back on Eastern Seaboard Standard Time. And each day, the next day, I felt terrible. And I also it was like not great for mental health either. Like I felt like like I wasn't there, and B, I was like pretty depressed. And I was like, but I'm just really tired. And then I stopped taking melatonin. But I still will for a while. I stopped doing it. Would get to points where I'd be like, I really need to sleep tonight. Like I don't sleep tonight. I know I have something late the next night, and I need to do it. So I take like half a melatonin, and then I would get burned every time. It's like I should have known what was going to happen, but I would still like, it's just so important that I get sleep tonight that they'll just do a little bit of melatonin.
Exactly. No, I felt the exact same way. I also feel like it wasn't good for my mental health. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, what is even melatonin? Like, it was
the
described.
FDA not looked into this? Like, you could get melatonin anywhere.
Yeah, like it's like you don't have to get a prescription. You can just pick it up at CVS, which is exactly what I did. And I was like, this will help me. And it only did not. It did not. So
big melatonin is polluting our minds, and
that's what this podcast is really about.
Yeah, big melatonin.
Debunking the myths of melatonin. I think it really is just one of those things where I know some people. I had a friend in college who would eat a lot of pistachios because like pistachios have whatever melatonin has in it, pistachios also have. So it would just like towards the end of the evening, she would eat them and it would just like make her just naturally tired. And it worked for her. So I don't know. I don't know why, like only the special people, I guess, are good at handling melatonin, but
yeah, maybe it's something you have to get used to. Maybe, I mean, it's entirely possible that neither of our bodies really needed that push.
Yeah.
We just run on a different clock, but that's sleep. If anyone could figure it out, it would be a big help.
Please help us. those podcast listeners. I'd have a question for you, which is, so sometimes when I struggle with falling asleep, like last night was a perfect example. I fell asleep somewhere between, when I looked at my alarm clock, it was 3:30 in the morning, and I fell asleep, I would say somewhere prior to 4 a.m. Like it was somewhere in that window. And I think my body was so desperate for sleep, I just like slept through the alarm. And I was wondering about that with you. When you finally do get sleep, like how are you able to wake up in the morning and do your regular routine, or how does your body react?
I wake up and I'm tired, and then I drink caffeine, and then I complain about how little sleep I got. And then eventually if I don't have anything to do, I'll continue to be tired, but eventually I'll pick up and I'll adapt to the day, and then I'll become tired again, and I'll drink more coffee. They say like don't drink coffee, then you'll be able to sleep. But if I don't drink coffee, then I won't be able to stay awake.
Right.
It's just, I don't know, this double-edged sword. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm always tired, but then sometimes I'm able to produce enough energy to do things. It's this vicious cycle. And tonight I have down to science where like I've decided in terms of sleep, Thursday is the most important night of the week, because if I get a good night's sleep Thursday, then I can have a good weekend.
Yes.
I really take issue with the idea that we should do things on Fridays. Like these ideas, like at the end of the week, Friday, let's go out. Like, no, it's a work day, and I've been not sleeping all week. Like Friday, we're not doing anything. Friday's mellow night. Saturdays, if you want to have a fun night. I don't always want to have a fun night, but Saturday is the fun night. I don't understand why Friday is like, oh, let's go straight from what we've been doing all week into like expanding the amount we're staying up by a lot of hours.
I totally agree with that, Noah. And I also feel like for me, I sometimes will bring my like workplace frustration if I'm carrying it, like if I have something to do on Friday, I will carry it to my fun thing. Because as you said, like you're just coming from work. So I just like sometimes will like march up to the bar gruffly. And then it's like, that's always, those are the nights where I make bad decisions because I'm like, I am going to get one more beer because I deserve it.
Yeah, because you're still living in the, yeah. I think that's one of
Exactly.
the things the Jews have done pretty well, actually, is Fridays. That's it, you know?
Yep.
That's the off
We
that's the
have
off day.
Fridays down.
Yeah, we have Fridays down. There's some things we need to work on, but I think we should be giving ourselves a pat on the back for for Fridays. And brisket. There's a
Yep.
longer
Oh
list,
my
but
gosh. Brisket. Yep,
we did a good job with that one.
we did. I want to go back to our napping conversation because do you like Nikola Tesla? Are you a Tesla fan?
I know who he is, but I'm not. I don't know. I
He so he's a character is the best way to describe him. And I went through a period of my life where I got very interested in just like, I'm not a sciencey person, but I was interested in him as like a personality,
Mhm.
honestly. And he, wrote many articles and editorials and like op-eds through his life. And one of them was, he was like, I kind of similar to what you were saying with Ben Franklin. Nikola Tesla was like, I don't sleep more than 3 hours a night. And everyone, would say to him, that's not healthy. How are you able to invent these things if you're operating on so little sleep? And he would admit to sometimes, he would say, sometimes I recharge my batteries, which was his way of saying nap, which I think was interesting.
That's
But
brilliant.
he's like a very, like, again, he's a character, and he at one point he wrote all of these poems about this dove that would eat like seeds. He would leave seeds for this dove on his windowsill, and he would write poems about this dove, which are honestly some like the most romantic poems I've ever read in my life. So that's another thing. I need you to check it out, Noah.
I'm putting it on the list.
Recommend. Oh my goodness. Let's see. So one thing that's helped me through over the years of having sleep issues is also finding other friends with sleep issues. Have you found other people who have shared your insomnia?
I mean, I've talked to people, but they have such extreme cases. Mine probably isn't that bad. If I gave you the numbers, I tell people how many hours of sleep I get, and then they always say that's like a fine amount of sleep. I'm always tired, so like clearly something's not working. But then I feel bad complaining because I talk to someone who like stays up all night, and they go, I don't know, maybe it took me like an hour to go to sleep. It was very frustrating, but maybe I have to check my sleep privilege.
No. I mean, I think in my mind, it's like, I know people who, with like, you can just say, all right, it's time to go to bed. And they're like, great. Instantaneously, they're asleep. They don't need any prompting. I feel like like in my, what am I saying? In my dorm, in my freshman year dormitory, I had two roommates. And I had one roommate that was exactly how she was. She was just like, I'm going to go to bed. And then instantaneously she'd be asleep. And then my other roommate would take like about 30 minutes ish to fall asleep. And then I would just be sitting there, just be like, what will I do? So I had to develop other friends in other parts of the dorm who I just like knew would be awake. And that's how I made friends.
Yeah, like an insomniac support group.
Exactly. Like knowing what doors to open and be like, I know you're going to be awake right now. Do you want to talk or maybe drink some cider? Oh
I actually had my freshman year roommate who he was kind of a kook, and he would never do his work, but he wasn't leaving he had all these projects, like he was translating Arabic and Hebrew into Aramaic just for fun. But so he was nocturnal because he wouldn't do his work, and then eventually he had to pull all-nighters. So he'd stay up all night doing work, and then he'd come back in the daytime and sleep, which is when anyone else would have wanted to be in a dorm room because it's the sleep schedule that most people keep.
Right.
So it'd be like weeks on end of like, you're trying to sleep and it's like click clack. He's catching up on his work, but then he wants to sleep, and then you can't be in your room at 4 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
Antisocial behavior.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a trip.
Yep. That would drive
Everybody's
me up a
listening.
wall, to be honest, because whenever I couldn't sleep, I would always, if I wanted to do work, I would bring it out of my room, because I
Mhm.
definitely, like, I'm a very hard typer, like,
Yeah.
because I don't type in the normal way. I really only use like 2 fingers, and I just kind of pound on the keys. So I just like go to the library or go somewhere else that was open 24 hours, so I
Yeah.
could just like
Or you could go do your click clack.
to my heart's desire.
How much do I definitely buy into the idea that like your sleeping area is sacred. Do you do work in bed?
I do, and I know that that is part of my problem, honestly, because my therapist, Dr. Nesbitt, has said, like, you have to stop doing work in bed. You
Mhm.
cannot make your bed the source of your stress.
Yeah.
And I agree 100%, but sometimes I just think it's comfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm bad, but what about yourself? So you agree that the bed is a sacred place?
Yes. And 99% of the time it's sacred. But I should probably start like folding my sheets. There are a lot of things that's like
Mm,
sacred, but like we draw the line, you know?
yeah.
But I recently I've done a little bit of work in my bed because I've been so tired. If I have to do something at work that doesn't really require me to think, but I have to be online, I'll lay down. But that's a recent development. I really try. I mean, I try to give myself a fighting chance. You know, like my phone, I try to ditch it early on. Um, for a while now, I keep it in my room, but like very, very far away.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally bought an alarm clock, which was a
Ooh,
big purchase for me. Because before I have a phone I have for work, and I was using that as an alarm because I wasn't gonna like want to look at my work emails
right.
at 2 in the
True.
morning. But if I wake up 2 in the morning, I'm either like, I probably don't have any text messages, but I would look to see if I had. But I had my phone in the other room where I used to live, and I would like go up, I would walk up, and I'd like come up with some sort of excuse. Like there's not like a crossing guard there who's gonna question me. Like I'm the only one. But I'd like go to the other room and I'd be like, oh, I have to. I don't know. Maybe this is. I need to go look at my phone. It's so difficult. I don't know. Yeah, I'm so unbelievably addicted to my phone. It's out of
Me
control.
too.
It's not even like a good rush. It's all the same.
It really is. I feel like for me, I would mindlessly scroll on my phone late at night, especially this summer when I was really at kind of like at the peak of my just not sleeping. I would just
Mhm.
be like, what does Instagram say now? And I would just be
Yeah.
like, no, like I cannot do this. But now what I do is, so where my desk is that you're seeing, my bed is over there. So I keep my phone right here on the desk.
Okay.
And that's far enough away that I feel like I'm no longer instinctually grabbing it at
Do you flip
night.
it over? Like if you saw the light, would that?
It probably would, but I've been really cognizant of like trying to just not look over at my desk when
Yeah.
it's nighttime.
I have a friend who has trouble sleeping. We'll kind of talk about our trouble sleeping. And I tried very hard not to judge people, um, unless they're doing something that's funny, and then I judge them and I write it down and I tell a group of people about what they're doing that was bad. But she said, you know, like she was like going on about how she can't sleep, and I was like, do you have your phone? And she was like, yeah, I need to look at like memes or whatever. And like, you got to give yourself a fighting chance. Like I kind of lost it. I was like, you can't be doing this. Like, it's hard enough to fall asleep as it is. You're letting them win.
Yep.
I'm anti. No more phones. We can get rid of one thing: the phones. And probably other things too. But
I know. I would say the phone is a big thing for me. And I also feel like I'm not giving myself a fighting chance in the regards of I know I have a lot of screen time, especially
mhm.
before bed. And I know that that kind of like wakes your brain back up. But I'm almost like entirely on screens the entire day since COVID happened.
Yeah,
Like I have
it's
no
horrible.
escape anymore.
Do you watch scary things before bed? I mean, do you think about what sort of things you're watching before bed?
I do, which is I know it's bad, but I find like a also a joy in watching scary things.
Hmm.
Like it still is scary for me, but it's a big source of enjoyment as well. So I kind of give myself a pass. It's been a while since I've seen a really scary thing that's prevented me from sleeping.
Yeah. So the threshold is pretty high
Yep.
for what will scare you. Yeah.
It needs to take a really scary thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just started. I just finished Breaking Bad,
Oh, yes, yeah.
which I loved, but it was like I watched it before bed, and then I was reading. I couldn't finish it. Cormac McCarthy's The Road. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like the worst combination. Like I was having nightmares about like drug dealers following me.
Oh
I
my
had one
goodness.
nightmare. Yeah.
So
Um,
that is actually a great segue into my next question for you, which is, as someone who does struggle with falling asleep, when you do fall asleep, do you have dreams and do you remember them?
I think I probably do more than I think I do.
Mm.
I think I have a reoccurring dream that I don't know if I'm sleeping or not, but that I've overslept my alarm.
Oh
But I
my
could actually
gosh.
just be awake. But sometimes I have dreams, not that often, but they're never good dreams. They're always bad. Maybe I've had a couple good ones, but I had one recently after watching an episode of Breaking Bad, and they just don't make sense. You know, I watched Breaking Bad. And I read Cormac, which is again like a bad company. It's like a melatonin of dream combination. But I had this dream that like this group of drug dealers, and we saw them dealing drugs, uh, presumably blue methamphetamine, but I don't know. To see them dealing drugs, and then we saw the police a couple blocks by, and the drug dealers thought we snitched on them, which of course I would never snitch on them because I'm not a snitch, right? And
Right?
I'm in this like very I'm in this like apartment, but there's stairs that go up, and they kind of like hang
Mm.
over a parking lot, and you can only get down through this is just everything was very specific. So I'm walled up with my friends, and the drug dealers have their Escalade because it's the official car of drug dealers out front, and we're thinking like, what are we gonna do? Like they're on to us. And there's a knock on the door. It's my parents, and my
Oh my
parents are there, and we don't know whether to tell them that like the drug dealers are looking after us because then my parents know we're in cahoots with the drug dealers. My parents have like a box full of Grateful Dead T-shirts they're in the neighborhood with Grateful Dead T-shirts, and like none of this. And I woke up because I don't know. Like you never see the end of the dreams.
right.
Which is probably for the best. You know, I'm assuming the drug dealers always win. They're good. Um, but that's my most recent. But normally the dreams are not that I guess illustrious. Oh, that's the right word, but
Mm.
vivid.
Oh, I hear you. I feel like I've always remembered my dreams. Some, but like I don't dream every night, if that makes sense. I don't
How
know if
often would you
that's,
say you dream?
I would say I dream about 3 times a week ish.
Okay.
Or at least it's like, I've also once heard that you dream every night, but you don't always remember it. So I don't know if the science of what I'm saying is correct,
Yeah.
but my personal feelings about it, this is how I feel. And I had a dream last night where, again, I fell asleep so late that I woke up, my alarm, like I have 3 alarms on my phone. So if I miss the first one, my hope is that I'll wake up to one of them. So I really waited until the very last minute to wake up, and then it interrupted the dream and I was so frustrated. But basically, I sometimes will do this with my friends, but I have one friend who's very good at urban exploring. I don't know if you
Okay.
go urban exploring at all. But I was going urban exploring in this dream on my own, which is weird and something I would never do. Because I believe it's good to go in a group. But I was going urban exploring, and someone in this dream who is not someone I know in like my real life was saying to me, okay, you could go urban exploring at this one place, but there's another even better place in this other town that you could go to, and it is great, but you should be warned it's haunted. And I said, yes, I'm going to that place. And it was like an abandoned hotel. And I started walking into it, and then it was that's when I like woke up, and I was like, no, no, I needed to know what was in that hotel. But I'll never find out because you never really get to the end. And there you have it. That was the latest Now Entering Dreamland episode featuring a conversation with Noah Goldstein. Thanks, Noah. If you're liking this podcast, I can only recommend that you subscribe to it. We have a subscribe button underneath each episode, and we also have a subscribe button on the website, nowenteringdreamland.com. If you're not a subscribed person, you can just follow the website. We release new podcast episodes every Sunday. We also have some additional content on the website, which might be fun to check out. You're now leaving Dreamland, but we'll see you next Sunday.